Monday, December 6th, 2021 meeting of the Dalton City Council to order. Mr. Mock will lead us in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. It's before you. Any additions, corrections, deletions? Motion by Mr. Mock. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Harlan. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Next on the agenda is I'm calling the public hearing on the 2022 general fund budget to order. Cindy?
Good evening. What you have before you is the 2022 general fund budget, along with 11 other budgets for the debt service, capital projects, and special revenue funds. Mr. Parker, the department heads, and I have worked diligently to prepare a balanced budget for your approval. The general fund is the main operating budget, so that is the budget that we will be going into detail. In this first slide, you can see that total budgeted revenues are $24.9 million, which is a 4.9% increase from the prior year. Budgeted expenditures are $37.1 million, which is a 7.9% increase from the prior year. And then budgeted total other financing sources uses sources 12.2 million, which is a 14.7% increase from the prior year. This next slide basically shows the budget by classification, revenue types, expenditure types. The three largest revenue sources continue to be the utility transfer fee of $11.3 million, which is 26% of our total revenues. Property tax of $8 million, which represents 18% of our total revenues. And local option sales tax of $7.5 million, which represents 17% of total revenues and is accounted for in the other taxes category. In preparation for the budget, we made several assumptions. We assumed no digest growth and no increase in the millage rate. This budget was prepared utilizing the 2.208 mills. This will result in a slight decrease in property taxes of $200,000. The 2021 taxable property tax digest decreased by 2.7%, which is equivalent to $96 million in taxable assessed value. Sales tax is expected to increase $979,000 from the original budget for 2021. We expect to see approximately $95,000 from the 4% franchise fee that we enacted this year. That is the only new source of revenue that is in this budget. We also project that our transferring from hotel motel will increase $300,000. We also will have transfer in of grant funds of $7.3 million from the American Recovery Plan Act for the lost revenue calculation and public safety wages and benefits. As you can see, personal services and benefits is 63% of our overall budget. Budget includes 367 full-time equivalents positions. We have added 2 new full-time positions, one in the city clerk's office and one in the HR department. Overall, full-time wages increased $2.7 million due primarily to the market study conducted by Evergreen Solutions. That market study was 2.2 of the $2.7 million. Health insurance premiums increased 18% for 2022. of which the employer absorbed all of the increase at an estimated cost of $666,000. The revamping of the city's defined contribution plan resulted in an anticipated $543,000 increase to this budget. How we revamped it is full-time employees, those that work over 1,000 hours, regardless if you put in any match, you will automatically get 5% put into our defined contribution plan. Then if you match up to 5%, you can get a total of 5%. I'm sorry, a total match of 10% from the employer. The city we did realize some savings from extending the defined pension amortization period from 10 years to 20 years. Total savings from that changed 2.1 million when you compared it to 2021. This budget includes increases in various operational needs, totaling $376,000 for such items as environmental insurance, anticipated increase in property and liability insurance, contracts for marketing, budgeting software, defined contribution administration, and hazmat physicals. The debt service transfer increased to $139,000 due to the 2021 debt issuance for capital projects. Transfers of $6.2 million for capital expenditures will be moved to the capital projects funds to fund various capital projects that have been approved by the mayor and council. So the total budget for requesting is $44,085,850. This next slide shows where the majority of our money is spent. Public safety represents 45% or $20 million of expenditures and other financing sources. Public works represents $7.9 million or 18% of the total overall budget. I'm sorry, did somebody say something? Capital considerations in this budget represent $6.2 million or 14% of the total overall budget. Recreation represents 9%, which is $3.8 million. We began 2021 with a fund balance of $26.5 million, of which 26.2 was unrestricted fund balance. And we anticipate $27.4 million in fund balance at the end of 2021, which would be an increase of around $900,000. Our fund balance policy minimum reserve is $9.5 million. Looking to the future, we have several funding items and challenges that we need to look at. We are going to be giving the retirees a 3% COLA starting in 2022. That will not impact this year's minimum contribution to the pension plan, but in the future years, it'll be about $229,000 increase in the minimum required contribution, which the city's about $114,000. As I said, that won't be represented until 2023. One of the things that Andrew and I will be working on is we have an absence of a citywide facility maintenance plan. We're looking at purchasing software to help us get a grasp of it and evaluate what the software will evaluate it, but it will track the needs of our facilities. We also have a net OPEB liability, total $18.3 million, of which about $7.5 million is the city's portion. We do anticipate that our OPEB funding that we have set aside will get us through 2022, but then we will need to start funding that in 2023. We also have accrued compensated absences of about $5.2 million. This next other agency allocation, this shows what we paid to other agencies for services provided to us in 2021. what we will be paying it in 2022. As you can see, that did increase as well. This next budget is for our debt service fund. We anticipate revenues of $800, $818,425 to retire our debt, and we would transfer in from the general fund $532,000. We will be utilizing cash that's already sitting there. Capital acquisition fund, we do have some cash sitting there as well, and unfinished projects for 2021 that will be carried over. And we will have, once that's obtained, we will actually have to do a budget amendment for that. We have bonded capital projects. We'll be moving in $5.8 million to into our bonded 2021 capital projects fund. We have various revenue, special revenues funds. These are funds that are normally mandated by state or local ordinances that we have to keep the revenues set, the revenues in the accounting separate. Hotel motel tax fund, $1.575,000. Of that amount, $477,550,000 we anticipate will be moved into the general fund. Confiscated assets, that is restricted entirely for the police department, and those are very hard to navigate. So if revenues or if revenues are more or expenditures are more, then we will get a budget amendment. Tax allocation district 1 and 3, we have very little activity in there. I did budget $50 in each of them just to keep them moving for next year. And our economic development fund, revenues of $36,000, expenditures of 1.5, and we will be utilizing most of the funds sitting there for capital projects. CDBG grant fund, we are entitlement community, and that amount, that $603,000, represents approximately 18 months of revenue coming in or expenditures. The airport grant fund, $397,500, of which $32,500 will be matched by the general fund. The last fund, which I can't see on the screen, is our ARPA grant fund. We received half of those funds in 2021. We'll receive the other half in 2022 from the state, and we will be utilizing those funds for capital projects as well. We will be moving $7.3 million over to the general fund. Any questions?
Any questions, including from the public? Anybody else I'd like to ask Cindy a question or anything? Nope. This is the first hearing. The second hearing will be next Monday night at a call meeting where we'll take action on the budget itself. Other questions? And all right, the public hearing is closed. Minutes of the mayor and council meeting of November 15th, 2021 are before you. Any corrections, additions, deletions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to be approved. So moved. Motion by Ms. Harlan, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Mock. All in favor say aye. All opposed like sign. Number 3, mayor and council special called work session minutes of November 22nd, 2021. Any additions, corrections, deletions? Motion by Ms. Harlan. Second by Mr. Mock. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed like sign. Number 4, we'll take action on this tonight as second reading of ordinance 21-20 to make findings concerning the public use and necessity of a section of Cowder Street to consider the vacating and abandonment of the public interest in and to the said section of Cowder Street for public transportation use, to declare the closing of such section of Cowder Street, to authorize a quitclaim deed of any interest to the city of Dalton except utility easements, to adjacent property owners to establish an effective date and for other purposes.
Mr. Mayor, in Andrew's absence tonight, he asked me just to summarize what he began last meeting, and that is, this is the Oakwood Group. I think this potentially developing some property off Glenwood Avenue. This is
This is the Manley Jail Works building, right?
yeah, that's
Okay.
correct. This is unopened right away. If you look at the ordinance and on Exhibit A, you'll see marked in yellow the area that was laid out on the old municipal SAP map, has never been opened. That too is called Cowler Street, although we're accustomed to it to the west of the railroad right away. This is to the east, really off Glenwood Avenue. It says Depot Street. That's an old map, but that is essentially Glenwood that it runs into. And so we've used the process, vetted it out, all departments. The utilities have asked to maintain their easements within that area, and the applicant is agreeable to it. So it is right for second reading and adoption if the council chooses to do it.
Questions of Terry? There a motion? Motion by Mr. Cruz, second. Second by Mr. Mock. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, like sign. Under new business 5, 2021 to 2022 new alcohol applications.
Yes, sir, I have this, Mayor. The Public Safety Commission has given a positive recommendation to license renewals, which there are 131 2022 alcohol application renewals and 4 bond renewals, but I will read the new. We take an action on, we need to do this separate from the new ones.
Well, we need to do the new ones first of the alcohol applications.
So the new ones, there are 4. Those also have a positive recommendation from the Public Safety Commission. Yes. Located at 1246 North Thornton Avenue. License for the sale of packaged beer and packaged wine. That business, new business is Royal Food Mart number 2. Second is also a new license for packaged beer at the location of 700 Redwine Street.
These aren't connected, but let's do them the new ones one at a time. Yeah. Is that in the form of a motion?
Yes.
Is there a second? Second by Mr. Mock. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Okay, number 2.
Second one is going to be doing business as One Stop Shop located at 700 Redwine Street. With a license for sale of packaged beer. Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. Harlan, second by Mr. Mock. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. All right, number 3.
Third one is going to be doing businesses for Sierra 18, and it's going to be located at 737 Riverbend Road. This is for the sale of packaged beer. Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. Harlan. Second by Mr. Mock. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign.
And last is going to be La Coronita, located at 1001 East Morris Street, for the sale of packaged beer. Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. Harlan. Second by Mr. Mock. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, like sign. All right, number 6, let's do the alcohol separate from the pawnbroker renewal.
Okay.
So
There are 131.
motion by Ms. Harlan. Second by Mr. Mock. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. All right.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, I would have a question that if you look at 131, how did we do as far as net loss? Do we know that right off? It'd be interesting to see how we've done this, if we've lost some or gained some.
Thank you, Councilmember Cruz. We actually have had a net increase of applicants from last year and from pre-pandemic years. Last year, we had a total of ballpark around 113 or 114 renewals for alcohol. And this year, we have about 20 more.
Thank you.
Motion by Ms. Harlan. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Mock. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Number 7, general construction agreement with Leonard Brothers Construction for new Cividan Park restroom building. Who's got, Greg?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This request is to provide permanent restrooms at Civitan Park. As all you know, Civitan Park is one of our highly utilized and visible parks, and we will be using 2021 dedicated CIP funds to construct this facility. The location for these restrooms will be built is outside the 100-year floodplain. So that's good news for all of us. It's near the gazebo, the playground, and the parking lot. It's much needed, and if it's approved by mayor and council, it will be something the citizens will sure appreciate. We have a lot of requests for bathrooms over there, and the Recreation Commission has approved this.
Where will this be located out there?
It's Civitan Park,
I know, but where?
right up by the parking lot, by the.
Parking lot? Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Parking lot, gazebo, and the playground, right near the most used area, right? It'll be similar to the one that's at Brookwood Park, if it's approved by y'all.
Excuse me, Greg, I think also the Rec Commission is working on with our IT department about installing cameras to monitor activities around several of these actual buildings in our Parks and Rec.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That money's.
Any other questions of Greg? Is there a motion on this?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Mock. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Harlan. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, like sign. Number 8, agreement for termination of service contract with H&H Exteriors at the airport. Terry, have you got that or? Okay. And
Mr. Mayor and Council, good evening. I have a termination agreement for services with H&H Exteriors. They entered into, in May of 2021, entered into a 3-year contract with the city to do mowing maintenance at the airport. 3 months later, they were unable to continue in that work, so we mutually agreed to terminate that service contract, which was drafted by the city attorney.
we're voting on the termination. Is that what it is, Terry? Okay. Any questions, Andrew? There a motion on this? Motion by Mr. Mock, second by Ms. Harlan. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, like sign. Number 9, fiscal year 23 grant applications and 5-year airport CIP for federal state project funding. Andrew?
Yes, so every year, the FAA and Georgia Department of Transportation requires us to send in a 5-year CIP for planned projects at the airport. We have to have these on a CIP in order to apply for funding, federal funding and state funding. So this is our 5-year plan for FY 23 through 27. The only projects that we're applying for right now would be for FY 23. We have an obstruction removal phase 1 plan, which total cost would be $300,000. That's a federal funded project, would be 90% federal funds, 5% state and 5% local match on that. So it'd be a $15,000 cost locally. We're already acquiring those properties this year, and they'll be up for removing the obstructions next year, should we get approved for these funds. The next project is design of runway and taxiway pavement and electrical rehab. That would be a state-funded project at 75% state funds, 25% local funds. That would be for next year. And then as well, the corporate apron. This is, we basically split the hangar project apart to try to save some money. So it is eligible for state funding at a 75-25 split. If we got approved for that, that would save the city $225,000 on the base work for the proposed hangars that we're looking at building at the airport. That would be the 3 applications that we need signed for approval for FY 23. And should we get approved for those funds, we'll still have another opportunity to approve those, the local funding matches for those projects.
Fiscal year 23 is that?
That is the state and federal
All right, so I'm
fiscal year. which
I'm
is-
assuming our matches are in this year's budget.
That would be in next year's budget,
2022.
correct?
Okay, I meant this year. That is, this year's about gone, so.
Right.
all right. Any other questions? Your motion on this?
So move.
Motion by Mr. Goodett, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Mock. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Number 10, GDOT contract for airport funding through the American Rescue Plan Act.
So this is just a contract with GDOT for distribution of ARPA funds, which is coronavirus relief payments for the airport. We are eligible for $59,000. It's a very similar contract to previous contracts we've had with the state for CARES Act funds and Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act funds. Basically, we'll use these for payroll at the airport and be reimbursed. So just need a signature on the contract with GDOT, which was reviewed by the city attorney.
There's no matches involved in this or anything?
No, sir.
Any other questions? Your motion? Motion by Mr. Mock. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Harlan. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, like sign. Number 11, ordinance 21-21, the request of World Cap Solutions to rezone from medium density, single-family residential R3 and transitional residential R6 to high density residential R7, a tract of land totaling 3.17 acres located at Brady Drive, parcels 12-120-20-013 through 12-120-20-019. Ethan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a pretty straightforward rezoning over on Brady Drive. It's over in the Crow Valley area. And this request came before us as a way to complete an existing development that was never quite completed. This is a sort of terminal end of a cul-de-sac type development that is multifamily, mostly consists of triplexes, quadplexes, townhouses, and things to that nature. And this request, of course, would allow the final last few tracts of this development to be rezoned and developed in such a way that will be very much reflective of what already exists in this area. Staff found no issues. We heard no opposition. Planning Commission gave a unanimous recommendation to approve. Oh, they have not yet submitted a plat. They would when they receive the rezoning, and they would be able to submit a plat, a final plat to move forward. Some right is the matrix on the city. That's something that was put together long before I started in the position. And sometimes it is, they are submitted site plans with certain developments. Certainly the more complex, larger subdivisions will sometimes go ahead and submit a site plan with the rezoning, but it's not a requirement.
I have a question also. With this being in the city, I noticed like in the pictures, they don't have sidewalks. Will they build to city standards? Like I see no sidewalks in like, I guess the picture was in my documents.
Right, in the existing development, right?
Yeah.
So this would just be a continuation of the existing character. If there were sidewalks, of course, in the right of way, then they would be required to extend those as part of a new development.
So this might be in the term. So do they have to do sidewalks with city standards?
I don't think the codes require it.
Oh, okay.
Per se, something could be.
Yes, that's my understanding as well.
Plus, it's pretty much on a dead end, and it's just really kind of completing it's where there's apartments over there on Brady Drive, it's a beach club over the road at the beach clubs on, if that makes you more familiar with. There's little land that needs to be developed over there.
I don't see anybody. The city staff, did they recommend this?
Yes,
They did? Okay. The city staff did.
the city staff, yes, we found no issues.
Okay.
They found no issues,
It,
no negative feedback.
okay.
And you asked the city staff.
I meant like Andrew, Benny, all that. Yeah, okay. I don't, because none of them are here tonight that I can find to see.
They don't have to have solar in
not with a minor subdivision like that. If they were to develop a major subdivision over a certain amount of lots and building a new road, they would certainly have to.
Any other questions? Is there a motion on this?
So move.
Motion by Mr. Cruz, is there a second? Second by Mr. Mock, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Number 12, ordinance 21-22, the request of Thomas Durkin III to rezone from heavy manufacturing M2 and medium density single-family residential R3 to transitional residential R6, a tract of land totaling 0.33 acres located at 624 Charles Street and 0.11 acres located at 620 Charles Street, parcels 12-199-19-008 and 12-199-19-016. Ethan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a rezoning in which the existing property is essentially, this has been proposed as a redevelopment. Former use of this, the two buildings on this property were a pre-K slash daycare. And the proposed use would change this to a higher density residential zone district that would permit multifamily attached units. In this particular case, is specified by the applicant condominiums. And the plan here is to redevelop the existing buildings and retrofit the property in such a way that would be code compliant and would allow residential occupancy of these buildings with multiple units. The city minimum size for a residential unit is 900 square feet. And that limits density quite a bit on this property at about 4 to 5 total units, I believe is specified in the analysis, but it should be around 5 units maximum. And that would reduce significantly the amount of parking necessary. And that was our first concern with higher density zones. Parking is always a concern. But again, the limiting factors of the existing buildings certainly limit the density capability on this property. And there's a fair amount of space at the street corner, which was formerly, I believe the pictures as part of the presentation will show that also, where the playground used to be. Of course, that can be utilized to create more than enough parking. We did some measurements on that just to make sure that they would have more than enough space to accommodate the parking. And based on, existing development in that area, and of course, the existing condition of the buildings, and this being an investment into that property, we didn't cite any issues with economic hardships on any of the adjacent properties based on the site existing condition and proposed change to residential. And staff believe these buildings, of course, could be redeveloped as they do have a number of exterior windows and features that would make it conducive to this type of development. No opposition comments were heard during the public hearing. Staff recommendation was to approve. We heard no negative comments from city staff, and again, no opposition from any of the surrounding properties. And Planning Commission recommendation was unanimous approval.
Are you talking about that's collectively between those buildings?
It should be about 5 units. I believe one was about 3,500 square feet. And the other one, I believe, was somewhere around 2,000. I think they have some other points around the building, and of course they can create new ones, as I'm sure they'll have to gut this building in order to make the changes to residential.
Is this creating an island? Like you said it was going to R6. Do it have to touch another R6, or is that creating an island? Look like it's going to be surrounded by all R3s.
Right. There is a lot of R3 in that area. I believe if you look in the zoomed out version, there's some R7 and some R6 in that area and a lot of commercial. The R3 is a pretty high density zone in and of itself. While it is single family, the lots are very small and the houses can be quite small as well. So in this particular case, being in the city in this particular location, With this being zoned M2, that of course was a byproduct of the former pyramid style zoning ordinance. So the property is currently a spot zone as manufacturing. And that wouldn't allow a reasonable use for the property in its current state or certainly in the future. And therefore, this rezoning as it was presented was certainly a better fit for the property. While it would be an island, it would not be a spot zone because it is residential in nature. And there is a fair amount of higher density lot sizes in this area.
What's the difference in size in the R6 and R3?
Difference in, I'm sorry, what was that?
Like the difference in R3 and R6.
Difference in R3 and R6. So in R6, you can have things like condominiums. I believe it's up to quadplexes. And in R3, you're limited to single family detached, but you can build to as small as 900 square feet of a home. And you can have a lot size, I want to say of 70, maybe smaller than 7,500 square feet off the top of my head. But you can build on a very small lot with sewer service. And in fact, R3 requires sewer service in order to have a lot size that small. So essentially you have to be in the city or very near it. Thank you for bringing that up, Ms. Harlan. That is a typo. That should be R6, and I apologize for that. That was the motion. Yes, ma'am. I do apologize for that. That was a mistake on my part. The motion was for R6 as presented. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Projects about what the future of certain areas that are very heavily lighted should be. I'd like for us to table this project.
There's a motion on the floor.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Harden, second by Mr. Goodlett. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, like sign. It's tabled. And we're going to wait till when?
In January, we have this group coming.
Yeah.
That could be one of the included in the areas that looking at to address our blight issue.
How long can we table these things for, Terry?
So when corrected by.
I thought there was a limit to something.
I don't think we've instituted a limit.
Okay, all right. All right, number 13, ordinance 21-23, the request of Hammer Properties to rezone from general commercial C2 to rural residential R5, a tract of land totaling 0.34 acres located East Morris Street, parcel 12-218-18-005. Ethan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is property, of course, on East Morris Street. And as it currently stands, it's undeveloped. It's essentially a graded pad. And it's in certainly a commercial area, but if we look across the street, there's several single-family homes as well as adjacent to this property. There's a non-conforming single-family dwelling that is occupied and rented adjacent to this property. And while that property is zoned C2, again, it has a single-family dwelling on it that operates non-conformingly. So there certainly is an established single-family detached character in this area. To go from general commercial to single family, or in this case, the rural residential zone. Staff did not cite any issues. They could meet setbacks and all requirements from city code in regard to the lot size and the structure that would be proposed to go there as a single family dwelling. There were no issues with negative impact for the area, as noted by the staff, and we received no negative comments from city staff. We did receive one remark in opposition from a gentleman, an adjacent property owner, commercial property owner. And his comments were opposed to that property being developed for single family. But he also stated in his opposition that he owns and rents the adjacent single family residential home that I mentioned a second ago that is adjacent to this property. He owns that property as well. And the remarks were just essentially in opposition for there to be a single family dwelling built on that property. Staff cited no issues. Planning Commission did recommend unanimously was to approve that rezone.
How does it affect his property at all?
I couldn't really see the argument. I think he was upset that he didn't get to buy the property was sort of the feeling that we got at the hearing. I think he offered to Mr. Spence to purchase the property.
Any other questions? Your motion on this? Motion by Ms. Harlan, is there a second? Second by Mr. Goodlett. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Number 14, ordinance 21-24, the request of David Mostetler to rezone from low-density, single-family residential R2 to medium-density, single-family residential R3, a tract of land totaling 0.60 acres located at 803 West Ross Street, parcel 12-199-27-095. You're a busy man tonight, Nathan.
This rezoning here is a little bit different than the last couple in that we are in an area I'm sure many of us are familiar with. For me, it was very familiar. Again, our office is only a few doors towards downtown from this location. And this rezoning would change an area that is extraordinarily consistent, R2 to R3. The big difference between R2 and R3 is the lot size and again, the size of the dwelling that can be built there. R2 requires a minimum of 1,200 square feet of gross floor area and a minimum lot width of about 100 feet with at least 50 feet of road frontage. And of course, this property as it currently stands could not be divided in a way that would be conforming to the R2 zone district. And while the photograph you should have from the street view will give you a perspective of this property, I'm sure most are familiar with it. There is what appears to be a vacant lot next to the house that is there on the lot now. It's a smaller single-family dwelling, and the property sort of drops off as you move towards downtown. And there's some wooded trees, I think, in the photograph that y'all have there. Their plan would be, as they proposed it, to clear that portion of the property that looks to be an empty lot. Do some excavation work, obviously some serious water hydrology, probably retaining wall, things like that, to be able to build a single family detached dwelling on that portion of the property and subdivide basically through family easement. They could break off a piece of that property if it's rezoned R3. They could split it and build a home on it. Now, the request from the petitioner, as they stated during their statements, was based on the fact that their, I believe its daughter is subject to a medical issue in which she becomes unconscious and things like that on a regular basis and needs regular care. And so they wanted to be able to provide a place for her to live near the family's existing home so that they could be close by. Based on the existing layout of the property, they did state that they worked with their builder and that there was it didn't seem to be a feasible way to make an addition to the existing house that's there. Of course, if they could make an addition to the existing house that's there, build a wing or something like that, then they could accommodate her without changing the zoning and still remain as a conforming property. They seemed to believe that with their builder that wasn't possible. There's a pool out back, I believe it was, in ground, and so that would prevent them from extending the house in that direction. And of course, due to the topography, makes it quite difficult to expand it in the other direction very far. Staff recommendation based on the comprehensive plan, the existing development in this area is consistent as it is. Lot sizes, building sizes, believe that this would be a situation where the issue of an entering wedge might be possible. And that's where It is an island. It's not a spot zone because they are residential in nature, but introducing a characteristic like this on the zoning map could create I don't want to say domino effect, but an entering wedge, an opportunity for other properties in this area to then be rezoned and divided into a higher density. Based on that concern, staff did not recommend to rezone this property. However, based on the Planning Commission, the public hearing, comments from the petitioner, the Planning Commission did make a motion to approve the rezoning with the condition that the proposed new dwelling be a minimum of 1,200 square feet and that all setbacks be met as part of the rezoning if this property is to be rezoned. That was the recommendation of the Planning Commission to approve as R3 with that with those conditions. We did not hear any opposition on this rezoning.
City staff, what was their,
I never got any straight feedback that was negative, but I also never got any feedback that was positive on that rezone.
Second.
any other questions of Ethan first one? No, no. Motion by Ms. Harlan, second by Mr. Goodlet. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, like sign. Number 15, ordinance 21-25, the request of Amaya to rezone from medium density residential R3 to neighborhood commercial C1, a tract of land totaling 0.31 acres located at 904 Riverbend Road, parcel 12-255-02-026.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Promise this is the last one. This property here is something that transpired from a previous rezoning that was proposed about 2 years ago by Miss Amaya, same petitioner. And she runs a food truck restaurant business just off of Wallen Avenue. And basically her request from 2 years ago regarded the property on the corner. This property here is just one further from that existing property on the corner, in which she originally planned to have the single family dwelling on the corner converted into a restaurant. And the issue there was absolutely no way in the world that she could accommodate the parking for the square footage of that house based on our existing codes. And there was just no way to make that work. So what she has done is purchased the property that you see here in front of you, the subject property. And she has proposed as part of that, I believe it's in the handout, a preliminary site plan that kind of gives an idea of what her general plan for development will be. And on this property with a smaller building and the one directional drive in and out with a few parking spaces included there, based on our measurements, while her preliminary site plan is not, of course, drawn to the 100th of an inch by a registered surveyor, by doing some measuring, we do believe that that property can be developed as she has planned it. And there's a little bit of flexibility with parking spaces and, of course, the required buffer area along a portion of that property. But we believe that all those can be met based on the size of this property and the plan that she's put forth. And certainly it is a better design than the previous rezoning that we looked at about 2 years ago. We received no negative comments from the city staff. I believe the feedback was positive, as well as no negative, no opposition remarks at the public hearing. And the Planning Commission recommendation was a unanimous approval. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions, Ethan?
Neighborhood commercial, like you can put like restaurants on that or something? Like what is neighborhood commercial?
Neighborhood commercial is a limited commercial category. It's not like general commercial where you could build a Walmart or large commercial strip malls, things like that. You can build essentially single buildings, small developments, very limited in size. It's usually things like a small restaurant or something that a neighborhood could benefit from being in the area. Goods and services on a limited intensity.
Other questions? Is there a motion on this? Motion by Ms. Harlan, is there a second? Second by Mr. Mock. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, like sign. There being no supplemental business, I've got two announcements. The mayor and council will hold a special call meeting on Monday, December 13th, 2021 at 6 p.m. for the adoption of the fiscal year 2022 budget. At that same time, please join us for a reception honoring the service of Council Member Gary Cruz immediately following council member meeting on December 13th, 2021 in the atrium. Your motion, we adjourn.
So move.
We're adjourned.